Welcome back to Immersive Sports Science. Content, not commentary. Fitness and exercise science, not bro science. We're going to be talking about the Fast 800 by Dr. Michael Mosely, scientifically based way of fasting, otherwise known as VLCDs, or very low calorie diets, and the relevant websites associated with this. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm sticking a trigger warning here. If you have an eating disorder, if you have anxiety about your weight, anxiety is about eating food, stop watching this video. Go and seek help. If you have the scientific and mental fortitude to be able to read this and understand the scientific information being presented to you in a non-biased way and understand there's forwards and against, then watch this video. If you're going to find that a struggle, don't watch this video. Leave now.
This is not about crash dieting. I'm hoping to reset this group for long-term change. This isn't about how to look good in a swimsuit. It's about improving health and the ability to fight off infections.
This diet was also used in the Channel 4 programme How to Lose a Stone in 21 Days, which was a highly controversial programme and faced a lot of backlash. Fast 800 was used to help those who were overweight, obese, or were suffering from other weight-related issues such as pre-diabetes.
However, if you would like to watch it, see the link up there. It's like I'm dabbing. One important note before we continue, VLCD, or sometimes referred to as VLEDs, very low energy diet, are not for everyone. If you are not obese, or one of these following categories on the screen, do not do this diet. This is not designed for you. These have been scientifically designed for people who are massively obese, or maybe have diabetes.
Clearly it's only appropriate for people who are significantly overweight or obese.
Do not try and do this on your own volition. Certainly do not try this without seeing a doctor, and certainly do not try it without actually having a full understanding of the scientific research and understand it in its context and relevance. This could potentially be dangerous, so do not do this without prior knowledge. Do not do this without supervision. In fact, I recommend for the vast majority of people, just don't do it.
Rapid weight loss can be unbelievably effective in the short, the medium and the long term. So there was a study out of Newcastle and out of Glasgow which showed that type 2 diabetics who were overweight or obese, 2 years later they were around 7.5 kilos down, and they'd kept it off for a couple of years. Around a third of them had managed to put their diabetes into remission. So the point is that these approaches are novel. They can work, particularly if you offer long-term support.
I'm not against fasting as an eating protocol for a short period or a long period. I am against fad diets though, which this is not. However, it can be utilised by many as a way to reach their target goals in an unhealthy fashion and manner.
It is important to note the European Union's position stand on this matter being the only position stand we have, and that is that VLCDs, although highly effective, should only be undertaken by specific groups. Now, this is a bit cliche in scientific research, but the major limitation to these studies is that we need a greater body of evidence.
We still need to do a lot of research in this and understand fully why they work the way they do. And only when we understand that to the nth degree, to the point where we can understand its full context, can we then prescribe this potentially. And that's one of the reasons why the NHS is now prescribing this potentially, or at least looking into it. Please don't look at this as me being for or against this. I am looking at this within a critical critique and review within its context. I'm neither for nor against.
The Fast 800 is not only a diet book, it also is a health journal, journal planner, and a recipe book. Not only that, it has a really good articles and recipes on the website. It is an epitome of scientific information. All a bit, however, possibly cherry-picked. And yes, I am not signing for that, Michael. I'm sorry, but I'm just not. Yeah, I don't fancy signing up for your meal replacement shakes. Anyhow, the Fast 800 is slightly different depending on which part of the world you are from. So from the UK version of it is actually different to the Australian and New Zealand versions of it.
Now there are 8 chapters, although there really are 10 chapters to this, and some extra bits. The extra bits consist of biographies, they consist of his notes, his own personal notes, a reference list, which is really good because now I can cross-reference this to look at how good the data is, how good the scientific research he has used to back his books up. And from a scientific point of view, these are based upon peer-reviewed journal articles. Peer-reviewed means that a body of scientists have looked at it, looked at their biases, and trust me, everything has its own biases, whatever media you utilize. So this, for instance, here will have its own potential biases. I can't deny that in my own presentation. That's why it's important for you not to take just my opinion. Do your research around the net and come up with your own opinions on it. Don't be lazy, do the research. But we can look at it in context of relevance to see how well this is actually written, and more importantly, look at how he has interpreted that evidence. He's also got some meal plans, although in his actual book regarding meal plans, they're in far much more detail. Written by his wife, who is also a doctor. It's kind of like, give something away for free, make them want more. Which is ironic because I got that from a MySpace meme. From MySpace itself, so that clearly didn't help them at all. Next chapters, for instance, number 1, why we put on weight, is his explanation as to why we put on weight, why he thinks intermittent fasting is so good, and for some reason why he loves what the Mediterraneans eat. And then we get the slow build of kissing his own ass, the information regarding the Fast 800 and why VLCDs work thrown in, and you get this kind of built up effect where we start from his own opinions, build up into the actual basis for a VLCD and how to do it, and also, more importantly, the negatives and pitfalls of this. Although they're not that very many because he doesn't write about it, he writes it in a positive stance. He has these Fast 800 Health Journal, which basically is a way for you to plan how you're going to do the VLCDs for 12 or 8 weeks, for instance. I wouldn't really go beyond that because that's potentially really unhealthy. So this book suddenly turned into Draco Malfoy. It's really potentially unhealthy if you go beyond that because it's all about trying to reset the way your diet, well that's the way he explains it. Trying to lose weight as quickly as possible, and that's the reason why they go for a very low calorie diet. But it's important to note that you must eat the right things. And what we mean by right things is we're not talking about wrong, bad, good, healthy, whatever. It's understanding that certain things are going to have more calories and be less filling as a result. But we will get onto that in a second. What the journaling does, it keeps you accountable. But do I need to buy that? Or do I just use his example in the Fast 800 or very many other examples online for meal planners, or utilize an organizational chart or whatever you want to do to organize you? A meal plan is basically how you set your meals out in a day, and it should be individual to everybody. And this VLCD, this eating protocol, that's a difference from a diet. An eating protocol is how you set your diet out and how you eat every day. And everyone has a diet, even if you're eating intuitively. It's going to be different to other forms of organization regarding nutrition. Whether that's to prevent you eating certain things, like maybe you have too much Coca-Cola and you know that makes your gut feel absolutely awful. And that's trying to keep you accountable to try and prevent you eating it, or to make sure that you do eat in certain situations, because undereating is also highly negative towards your body. It's to keep you accountable to what you are doing, give you the motivation to stick to it also.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to be asking you to go on an 800 calorie diet. So what I want to do is switch you from burning primarily sugar to burning fat. But if you eat the right stuff, it is a rapid way to recharge. Within a very short period of time, you'll stop feeling hungry. Suitable only for people whose BMI puts them in the overweight or obese categories.
Or in some extreme cases, you may be advised to go on a VLCD to lose weight before surgery, fertility preparation, or if you have diabetes or pre-diabetes.
Research has found that a short-term 800 to 1,000 calorie diet has the potential to reverse a range of health problems. In fact, the NHS is now beginning to trial rapid weight loss diets, which my wife Claire helped set up with Professor Jeff. It was an 8-week, 800-calorie diet using real food in patients with type 2 diabetes, only suitable for those whose BMI puts them in the overweight or obese category.
We recommended about 800 calories. They followed it for 12 weeks. and they lost about 9 kilograms. And the good news was that about 2/3 of people were able to put their diabetes into remission.
There are a number of VLCD studies that were utilised to explain what happens around rapid weight loss upon physiology. One of these was the Roy Taylor 2016 showed a remission in type 2 diabetes, or at least a reduced effect of type 2 diabetes, and the prevention of type 2 diabetes in pre-diabetics, though the sample sizes were rather small. Dr. Clair, Baley and the Newcastle study showed that rapid weight loss could be used to maintain weight loss over a longer period of time beyond the 6 to 12 weeks recommended, although after the rapid weight loss diet had finished. This went contrary to previous evidence which showed potential metabolic damage. Yet again, their studies showed something completely different. Other VLCD diet research studies have started to show something very similar. Yet again, they're not necessarily statistically significant. Previous studies looking at weight loss, and rapid weight loss in particular, had shown that not only had the weight loss had gone off, as expected, but they had put the weight on and then some. Between 60 and 84% had put weight on and put more weight on afterwards, and potentially caused some metabolic damage, especially when we looked at the Biggest Losers trial, which looked at the contestants of the Biggest Loser and found that they had caused long-lasting damage to their bodies. So there is contradictory evidence here, whether you're comparing the VLCD research and other types of rapid weight loss research. So therefore, we need more research. If anything, what the VLCD studies have over these other studies is that the patients and the subjects are supervised, and they're supervised afterwards, given the information they needed to keep the weight off and to live a healthy lifestyle. It is often noted when looking at trials like this, a figure of 95% of people who take on a diet often fail a diet. What I think they were referring to is the Spunkmeyer study of 1959 in New York. This is not really applicable here, as it was done on a very small sample of obese patients within an obesity hospital. The authors of the study have came out recently and stated they don't know why people keep reflecting the figures, because they're not really relevant to the modern day.
Some of the myths that we can lay to rest are that diets don't work. Actually, diets do work. If you cut your energy intake, you will definitely lose weight. People do regain weight. We need to be honest about that. The best way of keeping weight off long term is to lose more in the first place, because the rate that you put it back on again is reasonably consistent. It takes people about 5 years on average to get back to where they were before. And about a quarter of people actually do keep the weight off long term. Losing weight is quite hard work, and it's very difficult to mount enough sort of mental energy to keep at it for months. Of course, you can make it easier for yourself by getting family and friends on board to support you. And support is absolutely crucial.
The 800 calories have to be the right calories.
Wow.
So that is one sandwich and a bunch of crisps, because you would have this and you'd be starving hungry shortly after.
A reason why counting calories fails for the vast majority of people is that A, it gets boring, and B, it can also be very time consuming. A lot of people also rely on how the food feel. In other words, is it satiating? Do I feel hungry from it afterward? Does it fill me up? And for most people, eat the food and it will be quite filling. In reality, that food doesn't necessarily have to be high in calories. Some people may take a high density calorie food and that doesn't necessarily fill them up. Likewise, they eat more. And also, certain manufactured foods are also designed to be addictive. They realize that if you have 50-50 or at least 2-to-1 ratio of carbs to fat, it often feels lighter, but at the same time is more addictive, potentially. For instance, take cheesecake, very nice, very light to eat, but incredibly high in calories. Sometimes we don't even realize we are addicted to foods. It is a subconscious thing that can play out. What have I got in my bag? Got an array of assortment of different common snacks and lunches here that people will perceive as different common snacks and lunches, not necessarily normal in any way, shape or form. So in terms of a crisp, they're often around about per 100 grams, 513 calories. So yeah, you kind of get the idea. And how much is it? It's only 40 grams, so it's roughly around about 100 calories per bag. And that's not going to fill you up any way, shape or form. Now, chocolates here. One of these is roughly around about 100-200 calories per actual cookie. but my god, do these taste nice. For instance, a Mars bar is around about 400 to 300 calories depending on where you are in the world. 2 of them is really worth one of these pastas here. Have you ever gone to the fridge or looked past the shop and think, why am I looking at this food, or why am I eating this? Eating these refined sugars and these foods that are high in fats, high in carbs will increase our insulin production, therefore increasing our metabolism, therefore making us more hungry. Our bodies are primed to love and want more in terms of carbohydrates, or shall I say simple sugars. Carbohydrates are found in 3 forms: simple, complex and refined. Refined is man-made sugars, and simple is your glucose, which can then make up glycogen, which is your complex carbohydrates, which is your longer lasting carbohydrate. Now, having too much sugar in the body can lead to insulin resistance over a period of time. It could also, in extremely rare situations, cause the cells of the body to prevent sugar coming in as a protective mechanism, possibly.
Real challenge is the transition from this acute dieting phase into some longer term, more sustainable eating plan. There, the emphasis needs to be on reintroducing small amounts of carbohydrate and really picking those carbs that are positively good for your health, and keeping off those sugary foods, which you've worked so hard to eliminate from your diet in the short term. Don't slip back now.
However, I do understand the vast majority of people who watch this video are going to be overweight or obese, and there's going to be a chance that many of them do not understand or do not know they are overweight or obese. 60% of Americans are now overweight. Fact. You know, we have this culture of trying to be thin and healthy. Thin's probably the wrong word. Try and remain to a healthy weight, that's probably a better word to use. There is also a greater acceptance of being fat. That is debatable, but that also affects one's mindset about what is healthy and what isn't healthy. What is a healthy weight and what isn't a healthy weight. And let's be clear here, you cannot be obese and be healthy. I know that's going to upset a lot of people by me saying that, but that is the years and years of scientific evidence suggests, and that's not them being discriminatory on that. That's just all the evidence seems to suggest this. Therefore, we cannot recommend being obese as being healthy. However, if you're overweight or obese and you know you're overweight or obese and you feel comfortable and accept that you are overweight or obese and accept yourself as a person, then more the power to you. But you cannot deny that's potentially an unhealthy physical state to be in.
Is normal weight, overweight or obese?
Normal weight?
Would you be surprised if I told you she's actually obese?
Obesity has become the norm, with 2/3 of Britons now overweight or obese, warped our perception of normal, and some people are very good at hiding their obesity.
As you can see, most people are actually pretty bad at recognizing obesity, and that's probably because so many of us are overweight or obese. It means there are a lot of people out there who, without knowing it, are actually storing up significant health problems for the future. There are around 500 grams of sugar stored in your body, mainly in your liver and in your muscles.
Think about your scale. You lose weight if you eat less, and you gain weight if you eat more.
There is also around 17 kilos of fat. You're going to have to deplete the sugar stores, the metabolic switch, and move over into fat burning. Turns that fat into something called ketone bodies. And then the body and the brain uses those ketone bodies as fuel. You go into what's called a state of ketosis weeks.
800 calories a day, it seems, is the magic number. High enough to be manageable, but low enough to speed weight loss. 2 weeks of daily meals like this, and then 2 weeks later cutting one portion out to 2 meals a day.
Because the main thing is that you want to burn fat. Most of us spend our time just burning sugar, so that we keep ourselves endlessly topped up. So the fat just sits there like money in the bank. But you actually, unlike the money in the bank, you want to spend it. You want to get rid of it. And the trouble is that you can't do that while you've still got the sugar running around your system. And the only way of getting rid of the sugar is by spending longer periods without eating.
Dr. Mike Mosely is also a big fan of time-restricted eating. Time-restricted eating is where you only eat at certain times of the day. So for instance, not having your dinner too late because your body metabolism slows down as the day goes on. Sleep also helps with metabolism and other functions. TRE also depends on when you do your actual exercise. Say for instance you do your exercise late in the evening, therefore having a big meal before you go to bed is actually a really healthy thing to do.
The writing style is consistent, and the way he breaks down the concepts into numbered points and gives you extra seconds. Sometimes I feel like I need extra seconds when I'm racing. Time needs to slow down so I can run faster. The amount he gives you extra sections, not seconds, detailing information that is maybe extra but could be helpful, is also really good. He gives the full context. Well, the full context to highlight and sell this book. He gives the full relevance and some of the context so that you can make a decision to keep and buy his book. But I'm giving you the context and relevance so that you can see it relatively to your needs. And it's up to you to make a decision to say, this eating protocol works for me, I'm going to do it for Z amount of period. Or maybe I do it completely for the rest of my life. Maybe I eat intuitively, maybe I do intermittent fasting. In fact, I kind of think the way he's written it is actually very much similar to the way he actually talks while on screen, but in a much more simplified nature. And that's the problem with scientific writing in general. We write things as if we're writing it to someone else who's also a scientist. We shouldn't take the person as a dummy, we shouldn't insult their intelligence, but we have to write things in a way that people will understand it. And the problem is people don't understand what we write, and they get bored and they go off and they go to things like this. Nonetheless, he could have worded some of these things in a better way. They don't seem very professional, in my honest opinion. Or they do go some way to explain to a lay audience, or well, it doesn't really explain it to a lay audience. It makes it simple to understand to a lay audience. In terms of the actual titles and the way they're written out, I find them highly clickbaity. Are they actually relevant to what is being written? Yes, but highly contested, and you could potentially make an argument to say no, they're not. What I do like about this book, how he takes a complex phenomena, scientific phenomena, and explains it very much easily. However, at times it just seems childish, and at times he does try and keep your attention. The way it's written, the very big handwriting, it's designed for the average person who may want to do a fad diet to suddenly jump onto this and maybe, just maybe, change the way they are thinking about their nutrition, for instance. But likewise, your average dieter is not going to utilize this book because, or shall I say, shouldn't utilize this book because, well, it's not designed for you. As an average person trying to diet their way to health, you need activity.
Dr. Mike Mosley's book is really logical evaluation of scientific information. It is a fine example of how we communicate scientific information to the lay public, to the wider public. Nonetheless, the book's communication can be a bit simplistic. However, it does create a level of depth which most books regarding nutrition often forget, or just seemingly don't put it within the pages of their book. It does sound like him. This is the kind of thing he would normally say, and therefore we get a certain sense of authenticity. The health journals and the recipe books used make a nice accomplishment. However, you do not need them unless you are acquiring accountability and find it easier or more effective for someone to tell you what to do and what to eat at a certain time. I do feel when he's talking about the negatives, he doesn't necessarily take the audience into mind. The person who's going to read this book is highly likely that they're not going to be able to partake within this diet. And although he does communicate this very well with a disclaimer, and the disclaimers are really well written and in depth, and they are all throughout the book reminding those of who this diet is actually for and not for, and why, although he could explain more why it's not so healthy for these individuals not to do it or to do it. He does like to put a positive spin and puts too much spin on it. He also shamelessly likes to put his products out in front of you rather than taking advice about other ways you could potentially be eating and why they could potentially be good for you, or areas where you can find that information out for yourself. You can really see the scientific background he has. He puts out a reference list, a really nice reference list. Now this allows you to actually cross-reference his reference, see how well he's researched and the type of information he used might have forgotten, or things that may be of benefit to you, so you can do your wider research as an individual reading this. All in all, I give the Fast 800 a KSA score of 91.14.
I'm going to skip breakfast.
Isn't that the most important meal of the day?
That was a phrase which was invented by somebody working for Kellogg.
Cheers.